Cultural identity is a site of negotiation, it's a site of contestation, it's a site of interrogation of the power dynamics that underpin that cultural identity. My name is Huzir Sulaiman. I am the co-founder and joint artistic director of Checkpoint Theatre. I think my responsibility there that I feel is a very strong one to champion the narrative of the underdog. Actively seeking out untold stories has always been really important. For me, it's really important to understand cultural identity as something that's always in flux. It's always changing. It can be something you draw personal strength from, but it can also be something to set yourself against, to acknowledge the limitations of, to want to overcome. In 2002, I was commissioned by the Singapore Arts Festival to write and co-direct a play called Occupation, which was based on the real-life story of how my grandmother met my grandfather during the Japanese occupation of Singapore in the Second World War. They fell in love, they got married. What struck me in listening to the real-life tapes that my grandfather and grandmother had done with the National Archives is how much difficulty the interviewers had with really hearing the answer to a question that was not part of the official narrative. So it really made me think about the nature of writing history, the nature of telling stories, how we celebrate our past, what we leave in and what we leave out. I think it's really useful to remember just how messy history is and just how messy the production and maintenance of cultural identity is. It evolves organically with successive waves of migration. It evolves in response to urban change, to technological change, to travel, to media, and now social media and the internet change at a different rate. It's enormously complex. So when we talk about cultural identity as a monolith, as an easily reducible or easily definable concept, I think it's really useful to step back and say, who does that easy, simple understanding or prescription of cultural identity benefit? Who does it support? And what viewpoints are getting lost or shut out? On a personal level, I have been increasingly aware of how much a work in progress I am. Right. I think I've always tried to be aware of my own position within markers of social, cultural, economic identity, even questioning my own privilege, I think. Having had the opportunity of a certain type of education, a certain type of socioeconomic background, how should I constantly be aware of that to make sure that my worldview isn't limited, to actually interrogate myself and make sure that I'm not just writing myself or directing myself into a blind alley where you don't look at the full spectrum of the human experience. Representation is important because it allows everyone to feel part of society, but it also allows society to benefit from understanding that people have so much to give, whether it is from a minority cultural identity or any other individual marker of personal identity that has maybe been overlooked in the past, right? It's not just because we've got skyscrapers and highways and the internet that we forget that we are a product of hybridization, of syncretism, of tremendous understanding of subtle differences and embracing of different communities. And I think remembering that Singapore is part of Southeast Asia is a hugely important for understanding the complexity of our cultural identity. What I'm seeing is young Singaporeans are actively embracing the idea of nuance, even if they do have certain markers of identity, it's not always about their ethnicity or their religion or their sexuality or their political beliefs. You can share all of those markers with somebody else, but yet be widely divergent. And so there is a celebration of individuality, there's a celebration of complexity, there's an understanding that Singapore is gloriously multifaceted, and I see young creators being incredibly proud of that and wanting to work with that and build on it. And that for me is very exciting. One, be comfortable with disagreement. Disagreement and friction can be productive, and it can lead to growth. In the gym, they used to say no pain, no gain. And I think on a cultural level, that can hold true as well. Second, be comfortable with silence. It's not always necessary to constantly talk about things. People grow just by living their lives. Cultures grow just by living, right? By being, by existing, by interacting. It is not always necessary to analyze and shine a light on everything. And third, I would say constantly check the ways in which you are maybe not accepting of difference and try and change that.